The morning sun spilled across my apartment, glinting off the silver frame of my son's ultrasound picture. I smoothed the silk blouse I had carefully chosen for today's meeting, feeling the soft fabric against my skin, but my mind wasn't on work. It was on the buzzing phone in my hand. Another message, another reminder from the hospital. My son was still in the ICU. I leaned against the window, staring down at the city skyline, the glass cold against my fingertips. My chest tightened as I remembered that week, the endless beeping of monitors, the smell of antiseptic, the hum of nurses moving quickly around a tiny bed that seemed impossibly fragile. And then the betrayal, the one I never expected from the people I trusted most. The text notification flickered again. A cryptic note from my sister. "We need to talk. Call us." My stomach dropped. I had warned them before, calmly, firmly, that crossing the line wouldn't go unnoticed. But I hadn't imagined the audacity. I pressed my lips together, tasting the bitterness of both fear and anger. My apartment was quiet, luxurious even, yet it carried the tension of secrets I had worked years to bury. The sunlight caught on the crystal vase I had inherited from my grandmother, the same one she told me always to protect what's yours, even if the world doesn't understand. I exhaled slowly, straightened my back, and touched the small gold locket at my neck. They thought they could take from me while I was at my lowest. They had no idea who I had become. I remember that night vividly, even though it feels like a lifetime ago. I was 28, exhausted, and trembling with both fear and determination. My son wasn't yet born, but my life felt like it was already unraveling. I had confronted my family that evening, voice shaking, hands gripping the edge of the kitchen counter as if it could anchor me against the storm of their disappointment. "You can't just expect me to hand everything over while I'm struggling," I had said, my throat tight, my chest aching. "I'm not your backup plan. I'm your daughter, not your hey." My father, sitting rigid in his leather chair, gave me that look I knew too well, the one that made me feel small, like a child caught in a lie. My sister rolled her eyes, her nails tapping impatiently against the mahogany table. They didn't see my worry, my late nights researching hospitals, my dwindling savings. They only saw what they thought they were owed. I felt my hands shake as I reached into my pocket and clutched the small silver locket my grandmother had pressed into my palm years ago. "This is yours now," she had whispered. "It's not just jewelry. It's proof that strength doesn't come from them. It comes from you. Protect it and protect yourself." The words had burned into me, a quiet mantra against the chaos of their greed and disbelief. That night, after a door slammed behind me and accusations echoed in the hallway, I sat on my tiny apartment floor, counting the last dollars in my wallet, thinking of the life I was about to have to build alone. The tears came hot and fast, but so did the clarity. I would not beg. I would not collapse. I would rise. I made a promise to myself then, whispered into the dark. No one will ever take from me what I earn with my own hands. Not my family. Not fate, not fear. And so, with that locket around my neck and my resolve burning brighter than the hurt in my chest, I started my first real step toward independence. I didn't yet know how I would do it, but I knew that whatever it took, I would survive, and one day I would thrive. I still remember the sting of those early mornings, when the city felt like it was rushing past me while I was stuck in the quiet hum of my cramped apartment, learning to carve out a life I could call my own. The locket my grandmother had given me rested against my chest like a heartbeat reminding me of my promise. Strength comes from within. My first real opportunity came in the form of Claire Thompson, a seasoned entrepreneur with a sharp eye and even sharper intuition. She saw me stumbling through proposals and spreadsheets, eyes tired but burning with determination, and she didn't pity me. "You have something," she said, leaning across her polished oak desk. "Don't let anyone make you doubt it. Not even your family." It wasn't glamorous. Nights stretched into mornings, my apartment littered with empty coffee cups and post-it notes scribbled with strategies I barely understood at first. I fell asleep to the hum of my laptop and the faint skyline glow creeping through the blinds, dreaming of a life where I was the one making the rules. There were failures, deal after deal falling through, clients who didn't pay, moments when I questioned whether I had the right to even try, but each setback sharpened me. The first big breakthrough came quietly, almost unnoticed. A small client, impressed by my diligence and attention to detail, offered me a contract that doubled my savings. I remember sinking into my chair, letting the relief wash over me, and then quietly texting my mentor, "I think I'm starting to get it." It was the first tangible proof that I wasn't just surviving, I was beginning to build something lasting. I learned the subtle art of keeping my success hidden from the very people who had once tried to take it. Social media posts were modest, conversations about money vague. My family had assumed I was still struggling, but behind closed doors, my apartment evolved. The clutter of cheap furniture gave way to sleek, functional pieces. My workspace became a sanctuary of ambition. Every detail, from the framed notes of encouragement from Claire to the small gold locket resting on my desk, reminded me of my journey, my perseverance. I remember the first time I looked at my bank account and realized I had crossed into real independence. The numbers weren't just money. They were proof that I had done this myself. I wasn't relying on anyone else, and the thought brought a thrill I couldn't describe. I finally understood my grandmother's words, "Protect what's yours, and no one can ever take it from you without your permission." Even as life demanded my attention in other ways, doctor's visits for my son, balancing the delicate art of single parenthood, I carried this quiet, unshakable confidence. I was stronger than I had ever imagined, more capable than I had been allowed to believe. And most importantly, I knew that when the time came to face those who had doubted me, I would be ready. The knock on the door was sharp, almost startling in the quiet of my apartment. My heart skipped a beat, not from fear, but from the knowledge of what was coming. I had expected this day, in some abstract way, but not the audacity. They, my family, the ones who had taken for granted my absence, my struggles, my very humanity, were standing there, expecting to see a worn, struggling woman. I opened the door and let them step inside, my face calm, my posture graceful. The moment they walked in, I let them take it all in. My apartment had changed. The clutter of old bills and secondhand furniture was gone, replaced with pieces that spoke of careful taste and careful victories. A painting I'd commissioned myself, a sleek marble desk with my laptop perched atop it, framed letters of recommendation and achievement lining the walls. They froze. Their eyes darted from one corner to another, taking in the subtle power that radiated from every detail. My father's jaw tightened. My sister's lips parted slightly, betraying shock. I could feel the tension in the air like a living thing. I gestured for them to sit, pouring each of us a glass of water from the crystal decanter on the counter. Every movement was deliberate, smooth, composed. "You must be thirsty after your long journey," I said softly, the words carrying a warmth that belied the steel underneath. They said nothing. I let the silence stretch, letting it press against them like a weight. And then I spoke. "I imagine you expected to find me struggling, perhaps begging, perhaps broken. But life has a way of teaching lessons to those who underestimate others." I paused, letting my gaze meet each of theirs. "Do you remember the week my son was in the ICU? The week when I was vulnerable, distracted, and yet somehow, some of you thought it was the right time to take $500,000 from me." My father's face went pale. My sister's hand flew to her mouth. The air seemed to shiver with disbelief. "I warned you," I continued, my voice steady, carrying the memory of every betrayal, every sleepless night, every tear shed alone. "I warned you that my life would not be at your mercy. And while you were busy thinking I was helpless, I was building. Every deal, every client, every painstaking late night, it was mine. Every dollar, every step toward independence is mine. And today, I choose how this ends." I let my hand rest on the gold locket at my neck. "This," I said softly, "is my reminder of what I promised myself. I protected what's mine, even when the world, including my own family, tried to take it." Their disbelief hung in the air, tangible, almost suffocating. They hadn't anticipated this version of me, this poised, confident woman who had endured betrayal and hardship and emerged unbroken. The room was silent except for the faint hum of the city outside, a quiet audience to the unveiling of my strength. I watched as shame, guilt, and awe washed across their faces. And in that moment, I knew the power had shifted. They would never see me the same way again. I had reclaimed the narrative of my life. I could see the uncertainty flickering in their eyes as I poured another round of water. They had expected confrontation, maybe tears or pleading, but this wasn't about anger. This was about boundaries, about control, about reclaiming what was rightfully mine. "I'm not here to humiliate you," I said, keeping my voice calm but firm. "I'm here to set terms, because if there's going to be any future between us, it has to be different from the past." My father's shoulders slumped slightly, as if realizing that this time his authority held no weight over me. My sister's fingers trembled against the edge of the table. I leaned forward, letting my words sink in like gravity. "First," I began, "if you want any part of my life, you must acknowledge what you did. No excuses, no justifications. It's not just about money, it's about trust, respect, and honesty. These are things you have to earn back, not demand." I paused, letting them absorb the weight of that. Then I continued. "Second, the toxic habits you've relied on, manipulation, entitlement, taking advantage of others, those end now. If you want my help, you have to actively change. You must pursue your own dreams, work for your own successes, and respect the boundaries I've set." They exchanged glances, a mixture of shame and disbelief, and I pressed on. "Third, understand that I care about my son, about myself, about the life I've built. That means I will support you only under conditions that foster growth and healing. Anything that compromises that, anything that echoes the past, is off limits." Their silence was heavy, but not defiant. I could sense the realization settling in. They were no longer in control. I had the upper hand, not out of vengeance, but out of clarity. I let my gaze wander to the gold locket resting against my collarbone. My grandmother's voice echoed softly in my mind, "Protect what's yours, even if the world doesn't understand." It wasn't just about money anymore. It was about integrity, self-respect, and emotional survival. "I am willing to help," I said finally, "but only if you respect these boundaries. Only if you choose to grow, to be better than what you were. If you fail, the door closes and it stays closed." Their faces were pale, eyes wide, realizing that for the first time, the power in our relationship had shifted entirely. I wasn't angry, I was clear. I wasn't bitter, I was steady. I wasn't seeking revenge. I was enforcing fairness and respect, the very things they had denied me for so long. And as I watched them absorb my terms, I felt a strange calm settle over me. The storm of betrayal had passed. What remained was control, dignity, and the knowledge that my life, my son, my future, my hard-earned independence, was no longer anyone else's to manipulate. Weeks later, the apartment felt lighter. The tension that had once clung to every corner had softened into something new, cautious understanding, the first signs of respect, and a sense of closure I hadn't dared hope for. My son was home from the ICU, his laughter filling the rooms that had once echoed with monitors and alarms. And I, finally, could breathe without the weight of betrayal pressing on my chest. I watched my father carefully plant flowers on the balcony, a small gesture toward accountability. My sister, sitting nearby, quietly reviewed job listings on her laptop, tentative but determined to make a change. They were learning what I had demanded, not out of malice, but out of necessity. The world doesn't hand you growth, you earn it. I touched the gold locket at my neck, feeling its smooth surface beneath my fingertips. My grandmother's words resonated more deeply than ever. "Protect what's yours, even if the world doesn't understand." The locket had been my talisman through sleepless nights, harsh words, and the quiet ache of solitude. Now, it felt like a symbol of triumph, proof that resilience and patience had a way of transforming even the deepest pain into something empowering. As I sat by the window, cradling my son in my arms, I allowed myself a rare smile. The journey had been long and exhausting. There had been fear, doubt, and countless moments where the weight of it all seemed unbearable. But I had endured. I had grown. I had emerged stronger, wiser, and more confident in the life I had fought to build. I glanced at my son, his small hand clutching mine, and realized that everything I had endured, the betrayal, the struggle, the quiet determination, wasn't just about me. It was about showing him that strength isn't given. It's earned, protected, and nurtured. That even in the darkest moments, love and resilience can light the way. I exhaled slowly, a soft sigh of triumph mingled with gratitude. Life hadn't broken me. Life had refined me. And as I looked out over the city skyline, the sun glinting off the glass towers, I whispered a quiet truth to myself. I am the keeper of my life, the guardian of my family, and the architect of my destiny. And in that moment, I knew fully, undeniably, that no one could ever take that from me. Not my family, not fate, not fear,